To sleep or not to sleep? The negative effects on sleep and health in relation to causes like stress, technology, and stimulants. Sleep is a very important process for every species, and therefore the deterioration in sleep tendencies can lead to unforeseen physical and mental health problems. Certain causes of extreme sleep restriction results from stressors, technological inhibitors, and commercial stimulants. According to Mirsky, and I quote, "Extended sleep deprivation results in the deterioration of many basic functions and induces physiological changes similar to those seen after repeated stress." Calamaro suggested that with increased technology use, adolescents increase caffeine consumption, resulting in insufficient sleep duration. In this situation, the adolescents are sleep deprived because of the certain academic or personal stressors placed on them. The way they combat this sleep loss is by consuming caffeine or other stimulants to stay awake even longer, again exacerbating the sleep problems. McDonald believes energy drinks are also very effective high-concentration caffeine delivery systems. However, recent studies in Sleep Diagnosis and Therapy Journal claim that the rising energy drinks are actually high in sugar and low in caffeine, and do not lighten the load of sleep but intensify it. This paper aims to triangulate how stress, technology, and stimulants affect the sleep system and the health of the person introduced to these issues daily. Stress is one of the main causes of shortened sleep lengths. Evolutionarily, sleep is crucial for avoiding predators, keeping one's health at a level of homeostasis, the development and growth of new nerve cells, and storage of memories. College students especially face unprecedented barriers to facets of sleep, although most of these are brought on by themselves. Nonetheless, students do not get enough sleep and blame it on the amount of coursework or exams rather than the main cause, stress. Mirsky's article compares sleep deprivation effects similar to those seen after repeated stress, and points to stress as an important coefficient when dealing with sleep. It also points to the fact that there are negative correlations in sleep loss and the ability to perform cognitive questionnaires. Lack of sleep does not only mean that someone will feel tiresome all day, but compares to the natural effects of negative stress on one's body. Comparable to Haynes' article, the experiment conducted was dedicated to finding out the effects of stress prior to the arrival of sleep. Each stressor was composed of a series of moderately difficult mental arithmetic problems, for example, counting back by 18s from 347. Subjects were informed that the purpose of these exercises was to assess the relationship between thinking abilities and sleep patterns. Although this is a minor stressor, it still had an impact on the onset of sleep for most of the participants. As expected by Haynes, the non-insomniac subjects evidenced a significant increase in both objective and subjective measures of sleep onset latency on the stress nights. Sleep onset latency is the amount of time following the stressor before sleeping commences. Another study compared sleep loss, stress, and caffeine consumption. Following sleep restriction and doses of caffeine, Lieberman induced stress responses and tested for reaction time of tasks given to Navy SEALs in training. They found that sleep loss and exposure to other stressors of Hell Week resulted in a profound degradation in all aspects of mental functions assessed. Contrary to Haynes' study, Lieberman found that the caffeine had beneficial effects on a variety of behavioral parameters and mood states. Among volunteers exposed to severe sleep loss and other stressors, moderate doses of caffeine improved both the speed and accuracy components of the visual vigilance reaction time test. I'm of two minds about Haynes' claim that the stressors affect non-insomniacs more than insomniacs. On one hand, it makes sense that people who do not suffer from any specific sleep disorder, when confronted by a stressor, may continue using mental processes inhibiting sleep. On the other hand, I would expect people who have a disorder to become accustomed to a longer onset towards sleep than those without disorders, due to their frequent inability to fall asleep. According to Schrage, and I quote, "While some stress is useful and even healthy, frequent and chronic stress can take a toll. Stress is expressed somatically, and as a result, a somatic consequence includes insomnia. At the end of the day, timeless safeguards against stress include sleep and effective time management." A question has been posed inquiring whether sleep deprivation has an adverse effect on neurogenesis, the formation and development of nerve cells in the brain. An article written by Mirsky produces specific labeled cells in the brain to show the effects of sleep deprivation on the growth of these cells in rats. Following 72 hours without sleep, these cell counts were significantly reduced compared to the two control groups. Mirsky's assertions point to the fact that mental and cognitive processes certainly suffer from the decreased production of these new cells. Many students wake up without a full 6 to 8 hours of sleep during the week, or even pull all-nighters. Comparable to the rats in the experiment, brain cells in these students are most likely not regenerating at their normal rates due to enormous sleep restriction. In a related article, Murray states, and I quote, "Qualitative observations indicated that the social interaction was emotionally shallow and of short duration. The brain cannot access all of the stored memories and ideas due to the lack of REM sleep from the night before, therefore making it hard to hold a conversation with a peer or professor. In another experiment, Mirsky examined the effects of reaction time on certain tasks after participants were deprived of sleep for 72 hours. In this, they found that attention to the external stimuli was weakened. Mirsky stated 24 hours of sleep deprivation did not affect neurogenesis in the nerve cells, but 72 hours of sleep restriction lowered the growth and increased stress hormone levels. Contrary to the section Sleep versus Stress, the article points to lack of sleep itself as a factor in increasing stress. This represents a positive feedback loop in which sleep restriction causes stress hormones to be released, which in turn affects the ability to sleep later in the night. According to Dedna, insufficient sleep is seen in relation with increased behavior problems and injury risks. In the longer term, poor sleep during early childhood is linked to increased depression and anxiety, obesity, poor grades, and test scores in school. According to the Psychology 8th edition textbook, many sleep experts believe that much of American society chronically suffers from partial sleep deprivation. The responsibilities an average American assumes today vastly outnumber the activities of prior generations, and a faster pace of life is lived. Contrary to the book's view, public opinion would object that the hours exchanged for lack of sleep were justified for the success of an important task. This is not necessarily true because, with the decreased growth of brain cells derived from sleep loss, the extra hours spent awake may have been less helpful than originally thought. The book states sleep restriction can impair individuals' attention, reaction time, motor coordination, and decision making. Endocrine and immune system functioning may also suffer. Jane Collingwood added that lack of sleep may also cause high blood pressure, heart problems, pain, skin problems, and even infertility. None of these physical ailments are thought about daily, but they are vivid paintings of what severe sleep deprivation can do to someone's body physically. Dr. David Guzel believes a mass sleep study is crucial to developing a normal distribution of sleep patterns in relation to the population. The recommended hours of sleep has been skewed over the years due to the societal constraints of our generation. Since the mass sleep study has not yet been completed, the necessary amount of sleep per day is not adequately judged. The National Institutes of Health say adults should range between 8 and 8.5 hours per day, while newborns should receive 16 to 18 hours a day. Adolescents range from 10 to 12 hours per day. Those who do not fulfill these requirements are more prone to diseases or negative health effects. Stimulants and technology are playing increasing roles in all facets of sleep deprivation because they cause the user to stay alert. Caffeinated drinks like coffee and drugs like diet pills or decongestants send neurotransmitters to stimulate some parts of the brain and can cause the inability to sleep. The article Coffee, When is the Limit? Emphasizes the positive and negative effects that coffee and caffeine in general has on the population. They say caffeine interferes with sleep, concentration, attention, and too much consumption can also cause cardiovascular disease. There are various positive effects of coffee in small amounts, including reducing risk of colon and liver cancer and stopping migraines. Concerning technology, a recent article regarding the effect of watching television late at night, up to an hour before bedtime, reveals the negative effects it can cause. These effects can range from nightmares to the overstimulation of the brain in younger children, resulting in later sleep onset latency. Violence before bedtime is the obvious cause of nightmares, but any kind of visual stimulation roughly an hour before bed can be negative when dealing with sleep. Michelle Garrison states, and I quote, that the shows late at night hinder sleep because they are overwhelming the brain when it should be unwinding. Contrary to popular belief that a television in the bedroom is associated with facilitating sleep, the opposite is seen in these studies. This is also relevant to any type of technological device with a screen. An iPhone or smartphone, laptop, iPad, etc. all have the ability to hinder sleep patterns because they too can overstimulate the brain and inhibit relaxation, therefore sleep. Along with the review and analysis of past experiments, a survey is also underway to locate certain trends and sleep patterns regarding stress, technology, and stimulants. Participants were given a one-page questionnaire with some yes or no questions, as well as questions left open to explanation. Roughly half of the participants noted that they regularly do not receive 8 or more hours of sleep, which is the recommended amount for young adults. Although more surveys are being collected, these participants mostly selected that they go to sleep at 11 o'clock each night. All but 4 of these participants agreed that stress played a role in falling asleep or staying asleep. Participants who answered yes to using caffeine once a week or daily also said they frequently received 8 or more hours of sleep a night, diverging from the notion that caffeine directly influences negative sleep patterns. 75% of participants recalled stress as the factor that affects sleep the most, and technology and stimulants split up the remaining 25% evenly. According to the participants, reasons for stress that led to the decline of sleep hours included constant life pressures, inability to stop thinking of the day's activities, the mind is overwhelmed by things to do, priorities, ideas, waking up throughout the night, schoolwork, and work. The participants who chose technology pointed to texting and late-night shows as the reason for decreased sleep patterns, and participants who chose stimulants as the most daunting cause of sleep restriction refer to the constant awareness of the brain and the inability to relax and fall asleep. In conclusion, stress has a very negative correlation with sleep patterns and can inhibit the ability to fall asleep. Technology used before specific bedtime is also negative due to the fact that the brain becomes overstimulated when it should be relaxing. Stimulants do indeed negatively affect sleep patterns because they allow a person's brain to continuously send and receive neurotransmitters, keeping the person awake. Caffeine is also important to mention because it can become addictive and lead to detrimental health effects including anxiety, heart palpitations, and sleeplessness. The positive effect of caffeine is seen in the study done by Lieberman, in which Navy SEALs dosed with caffeine through numerous hours continued to complete cognitive tasks without delay. When used medicinally, prescription drugs can be beneficial for the user, but when abused, sleepless nights could follow, and in some cases, overdose of these drugs can be fatal. People can use certain routines or activities to reduce the stress in their lives by eating healthy, nutritious diets, getting enough sleep per night, relaxation exercises like meditation or stretching, regular physical activity, and the avoidance of caffeine, cigarettes, or alcohol. Avoiding the use of technology close to the time one plans on going to bed, and avoiding stimulants altogether unless they are prescribed to you by a doctor is generally the better idea. The best way to avoid sleep deprivation is to limit stress, and the best way to reduce stress is to get a long night's sleep.